Hey, this is probably going to be quite a long one. I'm in a rental car in Wales, stuck in traffic. I've been thinking a little while about efficiency, and the reason efficiency is coming to my head in the context of music is that a lot of people do say, and this really isn't trying to blow my own trumpet, but how do you fit it all in? Like, you've got a full-time job and you've got all these side hustles and you've got a family, which really should have said first, sorry, and a wife. All these different things going on, and yet you still seem to find the time to either co-write with Sam or write and create music as well. And how do you fit it all in? And the answer is I don't really know, and I don't think it's anything that I need to be proud of. I think it's just baked into me. And then I thought, let's interrogate it a little bit more and think a bit more about why that is. And I suppose the answer is efficiency, and efficiency is a really easy word to say, but when you apply it to your life, it has all sorts of different connotations and meanings. And for me, it's having a plan and having that plan extend across the appropriate time scale to be useful, but not too far. And also, and I'll talk a bit more about this towards the end, but also being ready to pivot when a pivot is required. But generally speaking, having a plan. And what that means for me is knowing that for either 1 or 2 nights a week, that there will be a period of time set aside, which usually takes place after I finish washing up after sitting and having dinner with the family, and before we all sit down to watch something on TV and relax before we go to bed, where I know I can have 45 minutes to an hour to do music, and that's kind of set aside and that's available to me. And you make those slots in your life by thinking about the plan. And if I give you an easy example of the plan, something stupid that I've done for years and years now is the last thing I do before I go to bed is I put all the breakfast bowls out and all the cereals out and all the glasses out, so that in the morning breakfast is just ready, it's done. And it's a really small thing, but it just means that I pay forwards a time where I'm kind of relaxed and not really in a rush and in a reasonably good mental state, because I am in a reasonably good mental state at bedtime, and I pay that value into a point where I know full well I am not in a good mental state, because I am not a morning person and I need at least half an hour in the morning sitting quietly, eating breakfast, and ideally reading a good book before I'm really ready to talk to anybody. So what I don't need is to think, I've got to put all the bowls out, I've got to think about what cereals we're having, is it the weekend, are we having weekend cereals, are the kids allowed sugary things or not, what juice is it? I don't need all those things, I just need it all done. And that's a small example, I suppose, of one of those efficiencies. Pay forward a period of your time to make the life of your future self better. And when I put it that way in my head, a little light bulb kind of went off about mental health generally, and I try and be quite introspective about mental health all the time, because it underpins a happy life, right? Think about that type of situation that I just described, a situation where you've planned for a difficult time well, and the benefit that might give you, and then reverse it, right? Think about needing to be somewhere and leaving it really, really late and not getting all the stuff that you're going to need to do that engagement, and then realizing that the kids need to come as well, and not having given them enough warning to begin the process of unsticking themselves, is probably the word I'm looking for, from their devices, and to be ready to come with you. You're running around, you're trying to find things, you can't find things aren't in the place where you expected them to be, you're getting angry with the kids, but you're not really angry with the kids, right? You're angry with yourself, and the reason you're angry with yourself is because you know full well you could have set yourself up for success here, and all you did was fuck it. And in that instance, just stop for a minute and think about how you feel about the you from yesterday, or the you from 3 days ago, the you that had all the time in the world and was in a pretty good mood and could at any point have begun the process of preparation for that particular engagement, and you didn't. How do you feel in that moment as you're running around the house shouting at your kids who haven't really done anything wrong? How do you feel? Well, you feel angry, but you feel angry at the you from the past because you didn't do anything right. You messed it up. You had every opportunity to make your life easier and you failed. What's that going to do over an extended period of time to your self-esteem? It's going to make you hate that person, and that person is you, right? Imagine if it was somebody else. Imagine if you employed somebody whose job it was to have your back and set everything up right and make your life as easy as possible, and they just kept messing it up. You wouldn't employ that person for very long, would you? Because they just weren't doing the thing that you'd employed them to do. Whereas if you flip it on its head and you've got everything in the right place and you went to look for that thing you knew you were going to need, and you know what, when you went to look for it 3 days before, it wasn't where you thought it was going to be, and you actually had to go up to the loft or out to the shed to find it, but you did it, and that meant that it was just there where you needed it, on the hall table, all ready. You got out the door nicely and you had a nice time and you had some good conversations and you bonded with your kids. That's what we're aiming for, right? So I think the answer to how do I fit it all in is definitely efficiency. There's nothing there to be proud of, because for whatever reasons that type of efficiency is just baked into my way of being. But I think in being efficient in that way, I've probably done quite a lot for my self-esteem, which in turn makes everything easier, right? Because if you are in a place where you accept yourself for who you are and you have love for yourself, then everything is just easier. It's that simple. So be efficient, plan ahead, but there is a pitfall, right? And this is where it comes back to music yet again, because this isn't like a mental health thing, right? This is supposed to be about the music. The album's going to be coming out September the 1st, and the title of the album is The Fight Against Joyless Control. And the reason it's called that, I know it's quite a long title, the reason it's called that is because that's the problem. That's the other edge of that sword of efficiency, right? Is that being efficient like that means you kind of have to know what's going to happen next. You've got to know what the plan is. And after a while, that can become a bit of a problem, because you become very unsure and anxious in instances where you don't know the plan, or when the plan that you thought was going to happen changes without an awful lot of warning. And that is not a good place to be either, because life is about spontaneity. It's about joy, and it's about being able to do things that either you or somebody else wants to do, potentially at quite short notice. Even if you've been planning to do some music or planning to do something else, you need to be aware of that and remember that a life of joyless control is probably a life that isn't really worth living. So there's a balance, right? And the balance is something you have to find in your own life. But maybe with a bit of luck, some of these thoughts might be vaguely helpful to somebody else. They're definitely helpful. For me, maybe there's some opportunities you can find in your life to look for those efficiencies, or maybe you've gone way too far in the other direction and you plan everything to the nth degree and you suddenly realize you haven't had any fun for the last 3 months. Find your balance.